So it might pay to open that up on your own computer, because we'll be sort of jumping around a few different spaces today. So welcome everyone, good to have you here for our interactive workshop. Hopefully it'll be a bit of hands-on and a bit of a trial and not too much error. And welcome to Mitch and Charles and Jairus and Meredith joining us. Great to have you experienced people on board as well. So today, what are we looking at? We're looking at, I thought we'd have a look at 3 simple immersive reality tools. Just a bit of a tip the old toe in the water type of thing, but I think they can be particularly useful if you're wanting to explore what can your students do without having to become computer science students or having to pay for a whole lot of high-end software or devices. So today we're looking at 3 more sort of augmented reality type of tools. So Google Earth, Web, Metaverse, and then Roslyn, which is why Charles and Jairus are here. They're going to give us a bit of an overview of Roslyn and where it's at and whether we can actually use it or not. So looking forward to that. And then tomorrow, going to look at 3 other tools. So we're going to look at Google Street View, how you can actually create some of your own 360 content just using your own smartphone. So you don't have to go out and buy a 360-degree camera. Of course, there are lots of advantage in doing that if you can afford it. But if you want to get your students to start creating stuff and they don't have or can't afford the gear, they all have a smartphone. At least 99% of them do. And what can they do with that to create their own content? And then a simple web-based VR platform, SeekBeak, and Mozilla Hubs. I missed that out. Mozilla Hubs, I think, is quite interesting because it allows you to collaborate in a virtual space, unlike most of the other VR tools that are out there at the moment, which tend to be a single sole experience. So really quite keen to see what we can do with something like Mozilla Hubs and collaborate. So back to today. First thing I've done is I've created a Padlet, and this is actually thank you to Meredith and the Faculty of Arts. So it's hosted on the Faculty of Arts site somewhere, I presume. And I've opened this up so that anyone can contribute and comment. So that link from the main page there will take you to this Padlet. I'll just copy the link, put it in the chat anyway, just in case. So this is kind of a space where I'd like people to be able to contribute. So unlike the EduBlog space, which is kind of my space I've set up, which is effectively my notes for this series for the 4 days, the Padlet allows you to contribute, to comment, to ask questions, etc. And so I've just set it up very simply. I've just put in some of the resources from the intro that we went over, a couple of the articles around some of the design principles, a couple of the examples showcase that we've talked about, one that we didn't, which is looking at using augmented reality and visual design studios, some of the work I was involved in there. And there's lots of other examples. So if you've been involved in something that you'd like to share, feel free to share that. You just click on the plus down the bottom there to add another panel and put a link to any of the work that you'd like to share. And then some resources. So I've just put a link to some of the University of Melbourne resources there. So there's some fantastic stuff that's been done already. Faculty of Architecture, Building and Planning, Learning Environments, and of course, Charles and his team. Then if there's any particular questions you'd like to ask throughout the next couple of days, then apart from chucking them in the chat or just talking, you might like to actually put them into the Padlet there so that everyone could actually answer those. And the tools that we're looking at today, I've created a couple of little examples just as little tutorials, so you can have a look at those. And the final thing is I'd like you to sort of have a bit of a brainstorm around, how would you apply some of these tools in your own context, in the context of what you're teaching. And if you'd like to share those potential scenarios, they can just be a text, you know, a paragraph or a sentence of how would you apply this, you know, in teaching music, for example, Solange. What's a potential scenario that you can conceptualize and perhaps share and maybe get some feedback on from everyone else as well. So once again, keen to get people to, you know, jump in and talk and ask questions, etc. So it's not just a monologue from me, but we'll see how we go. So the Padlet, that's there for everyone to contribute to. Keen to see that grow. So please feel welcome as we go along today to contribute to that. So the first simple tool that I'd like to look at today is Google Earth Web. So this is the link that I've got there, which is basically to Google's how to go about using Google Earth Web. How many people have you actually used Google Earth Web before? So Mitch, Meredith. Okay. So it's kind of the evolution of what was called Tour Builder. Like Google tend to do, they start off with a product idea and then iterate it many times. And it's pretty much in continual beta until they get tired of it and then they shut it down. So that's kind of what they did with Tour Builder after it being around for a few years and Expeditions. What they've done now is as they iterate, they tend to change its format and platform and bring it into some of their other, perhaps longer lasting platforms. And so they basically integrated Tour Builder into Google Earth now. So now you do pretty much what you could have done via Tour Builder and Google Earth. I guess the benefit of that is it seemed to work better on mobile than Tour Builder used to. Tour Builder was not supported on mobile devices, whereas Google Earth Web is. So it's quite an intuitive how to go about it. You can go pretty much go through their documentation on how to get started, etc. But the key thing is actually jumping to Google Earth itself, the actual Google Earth Web. I always find it problematic with Zoom with a interface jumping over the links there. But anyway, here's the link. I'll put that into the chat if you haven't got it there. So if you want to jump into Google Earth Web and have a bit of a look, a bit of a play yourselves, that's kind of the idea, is have a try, have a go at it. But I'm just going to walk you through what I've done, which is a very simple, basic use of Google Earth Web by way of example. So I've centered it on Australia, New Zealand. I thought that was appropriate. It does tend to default to you know, America when you boot up Google Earth Web. Everything is a bit American centric, but anyway. So effectively what you do once you've gone in there, and if you have a Google account, you can associate your Google Earth Web projects with your Google account. So if I just go back one step, you can see I've logged in, so it's recognized me as my profile, and you can create a new project. I've already created one, so I'm just going to go into it and edit it. And it's a pretty simple interface. You can see it's jumped back to the other side of the world there, but anyway. What you do is you click on New Feature, and you've got a choice, not a huge amount of choice. That you've got a full screen slide, which they kind of recommend is effectively your first slide. It's kind of like the contextualizing what your project is about. And then you can add place marks, and you can do place marks two different ways. One is you can actually just drop a pin, you know, move the map, put a pin where you want it and add it. Or you can do a search, so you can search for whatever. If you know a location or an object that's on Street View, you can just type that in, and it will navigate to that, and you can add it. Or you can draw lines and shapes. So those are your basic tools. So if I add a new place mark, it's going to jump that to the end of my queue somewhere, and at this stage I could select the location. Let's just go around the other side of the world, and if I zoom in, actually let's go, I want to do a search actually. Search makes it easier. Go Vancouver. Does a nice little visual flyover, which I think is really nice with Google Earth. And if I add that to my project, I'm just going to go save, and I can edit that. It's added that down to the end of my list. I'll go back into edit. You can change the information. You can change the location. You can choose the default view, so you can zoom into wherever you want to actually look at. You can put it in 3D mode. So if I'd actually searched for an actual location inside Vancouver, then it would have zoned in a bit closer. So I might do that actually. Let's just go back, and I'm going to go new feature, search, go Stanley Park. So now it's zoomed in a whole lot more. It's a very famous park in Vancouver, and I've happened to have visited there, which means I've actually got some photos of it. So I can actually add my own photos instead of the default ones if I want to, and if I add that to my project. Save. And then go and click on it and edit. You can do things like go into 3D mode, which changes the view. You can decide on where you want to actually be, and then within that, let's go around the rose garden. I think I've got a couple of photos close to there. You can click on capture this view, and that will then become the default view for that point on your tour. Because I've used Street View quite a bit, I have a few photos of that area. Here's a Stanley Park photo. This is in Google Street View. You can see I had a 360-degree camera. Now I just put it on the little fence, concrete fence there, so you can see Vancouver in the background. You can see me hiding inobtrusively next to a tree while I'm remotely navigating my camera via Wi-Fi, trying to look like I'm not doing that. And so I took that photo. What I can do is I can do things like if I click on share, and if I go say embed, I can copy that code and I can put this into my tour. So now I could add on to that. I want to say replace that and put my own photo there. I'm going to switch to HTML view because the copy embed code is in HTML. and paste that in there, and it automatically saves. You can see it's auto saved. And if I go back, it should pop that up. There we go. So now associated with the Google Earth part of this tour on Stanley Park, I've actually got my photo, my 360-degree photo as part of that. So what I think is quite cool about these tools is that you can create your own content and add to them. You don't have to use just the default content. And that for me is a powerful thing. If you're going to get students to create stuff, is they can use their own content that they've captured, or they can find a library of photos online, etc. So if I now go back to present, you can see I've got a few different places there. It's a little bit buggy in Safari, as you can see. That should be full screen. But if I switch to my iPad, so the other thing I like about this is it actually plays quite nicely with mobile devices. You can see I've loaded that on my iPad, and I can just go between my various sites that I put there. So my first one was AUT, picking up my microphone, very annoying in the middle of the screen there. Then I've added a couple of 360-degree photos that I've actually put onto that part of the map, uploaded to Street View. It's just loading slowly. There we go. And you could either click on View in Google Maps to see the entire photo in all its glory, or you can just mouse around in the little preview window. That was actually my first ever 360-degree photo using a twin lens LG 360 cam. So that's me trying to look very unobtrusive while I have a giant thumb in the photo. Because as you realize, when you start taking 360-degree photos, it's taking a photo of everything, which includes what the camera is sitting on, or if you're holding it, you're going to end up with a giant hand in the photo. So what I did try to do is put myself between the two lenses, so it kind of minimized my impact or the focus of me on the photo itself. And as we move around the tour, just moving to the next 360-degree photo that I've got there. I've just taken this outside one of the new buildings. What I quite like about this is, if you can see that there, there's a disembodied foot. So because I used my smartphone to take this 360 photo, so what you do is you actually stitch, you move your phone as you're stitching all those elements together. It means there's a bit of a significant amount of time while you're building that 360 photo, and as people walking past, you're capturing little bits of them. So you end up with interesting things like people being in your photo multiple times, or so that person with the red pants on is there twice. And then there's various missing disembodied body parts as that person walked past, and the stitch overwrote most of their body. So interesting. You can get some quite sort of creative photos by doing that type of thing. So now I'm just moving to my next point on the map. You can see it's actually in Melbourne. This is the shot tower. So it's really quite graphical. I quite like it. So you can, you sort of think about what do you want to achieve? What could this tool do? And maybe as a student project, what's something useful? Maybe they could visit all the local, music performance venues and create a tour of those, a virtual tour of them, and even have embed into them a YouTube video of their band performing at that venue. So it becomes like a live band tour. I'm just kind of thinking, what's the use of something like this for music and Solange as a context. And if I go to my next one, this is the photo that I took inside the shop museum. And I quite like this. I did this with my camera phone once again. It's just a very graphical place to take a photo. As it's loading slowly, here we go, it's rendering. Because you have this conical feature up the top there, and even though I stitched it on my phone just really, really quickly, it came together really well. I was quite impressed with that. And obviously I can zoom in and out as well. And if you look in the back here, I've labeled this one Crocodile Dundee, because there's this guy standing there behind me who looked like Crocodile Dundee. And I was a bit worried he might have a big knife, so I made sure I didn't focus on him too much. Anyway. So that's a really, really quick look at Tour Builder. just jump back out of there. So I think it's a pretty simple interface. You don't have to have a whole lot of your own content as such. But if you do, then your project is obviously much more contextualized to you. What's this about Tom Thumb, hey? So what do people think? What do you think of?
I want to contribute something, Thomas, if I can.
Yeah.
This is brilliant. And the whole suite of Earth tools is so interesting. There's another one that you haven't shown here, but it's also a web interface. It's called Google Earth Studio. Okay. And it allows you to export really high quality video segments of animation. So you can do a fly to an orbit, and there's a whole bunch of pre-made animations, or you can frame by frame animate. And it's quite interesting for immersive elements, because one thing that you can potentially do is you can make a very big rectangle, position it kind of pretty close to you inside a spherical video, and then move the animation slowly through Street View. Mm-hmm. So it does have a sort of the effect of, because it's so big in your peripheral view, it does have quite an interesting immersive impact. It's still like looking at a cinema screen inside the 360 video. And you've got to treat it very carefully. You can't move too quickly through the landscape. But it's a way of using freely available Street View data to create a video element, which is, basically moving through some of those 3D models through cities and stuff. It's a bit of a hack.
Do you want to put a link to that in the Padlet, Mitch? That would be great.
It's a bit of a hack, and it's not perfect, but...
have you tried it on mobile? Mobile devices like a tablet or a phone.
Well, essentially, you're just making a video element.
Oh, okay. So you export it as a video file.
Yeah, it exports as a 2D video, but then you can kind of push that 2D video element back into a spherical video project.
Yep.
And if you position it just right, and if you move the camera, the virtual camera, through Street View at the right pace, it does have the effect of immersive video, because you're kind of right up close to the image. You have to be a bit careful, because it can be seasickness inducing, motion sickness inducing.
Yep.
But I've tried it, and it's, the potential is there. But the interesting thing is, that video used to cost networks literally thousands, probably tens of thousands of dollars in licensed, to license that kind of video for their use on, I don't know, graphics where you see, you always see it on a news package, like on a war zone or something. They'd zoom in from the wide map down to the cityscape. But it's freely available, and it's the kind of thing that, especially if you're encouraging students to make and do and kind of user-generated content, it's a pretty interesting thing.
Yeah.
The thing I wanted to add was, I don't know if you've tried this, but cardboard camera creates a cylindrical 360 image.
Yes.
And it's a funny thing, because it sort of seems like they've abandoned that, and it's kind of useless in most settings, really. But I wonder, do you know if you can still upload them to Street View, and if you can use them?
What you can do with cardboard camera, because I've used it a fair bit. I normally start a workshop with cardboard camera, because it's just so easy entry point. Once again, if you could stick a link into the Padlet, that'd be fantastic for people. But it's a free app you can download to your phone, cardboard camera. But what you can do with cardboard camera, they've dropped out some of the share features, but what you can do is you can save the cylindrical photo to your camera roll, and it saves it in the, I can't remember the name of the format, but, and then you can then bring that into other web-based VR platforms like SeatPeek or you know, whatever platform you're using to present it as such.
Does it allow you to bring it into the Google Earth Voyager projects? Do you know?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it does. I haven't tried that. It may do, but it might look a bit weird because the, you know, the Google Earth and Street View are after, you know, fully spherical photos. So they might either stretch it and make it look really funny, or it's just going to look a little bit like you haven't finished it as a cylindrical panoramic view. But yeah, I haven't tried it as such.
From a student point of view, they're much easier to take than anything else.
Yeah, people are used to doing panorama with their phone. You just turn your phone around, so pan it around. The other thing I like about cardboard camera is it also takes a little audio loop. And sometimes that audio loop, which is about 10 seconds, I think, really helps the immersiveness, even though it's just a cylindrical environment. If you've got an audio loop that's recorded, if you're doing like a view in a street, you get to hear the cars going past, or trucks, or, you know, the fire engine or a siren or whatever. One of my favorites is, you know, standing on top of the mountain. It's one of the default preview ones, but you get to hear the wind noise. And so when you stick it, particularly if you do it on a cardboard view, so you feel like you're immersed in it, even though, you know, it's not a full 360, the audio just really impacts the immersive feel of it. And you feel cold because you feel this wind noise, you see snow, and so your body kind of reacts to that. And I found with a lot of the projects that we've been doing in VR, audio is actually really critically important to the immersiveness of that environment.
The other little thing I picked up, Thomas, you know, Poly Tour Creator is now defunct. Like you said, so many Google products just get kind of ditched after they've had
they seem to lose interest and dump them, but I guess that's the nature of it. You know, you take what you can for free, and that's the nature of it. But yeah,
I was going to add that I've been prompted by email notifications to download those tours. I mucked around and created quite a few of them just on my phone, and it actually does something to those cylindrical panoramas, because they all come down as something called a mega stereo JPEG, which means it's got a top and bottom stereoscopic pair. And I don't know how it's a single, you know, it's a single lens that's caught it from your camera, but it's doing something, some little magic trick in the Google servers, and it's creating a stereoscopic paired image.
Yeah, it's pretty clever.
I haven't looked into that, but I thought that was interesting, because what depth perception is there? But if there is any, it's kind of, would be interesting to know.
Yeah. And of course, I think there's huge potential, you know, going forward with LiDAR. And if you have, or lucky enough to be able to afford an iPhone 12 Pro or an iPad Pro, which unfortunately I don't have either of, but you know, a lot of students really keep up to date, particularly with their smartphone. That, you know, they'll buy a new smartphone every 6 months just because they've got the money and they want to be up to date. But you know, the LiDAR scanners built into those devices allow you to create, you know, 3D imagery really quickly and really simply, and create 3D models. So it's not something I'm going into over the next 2 days, but that, I think there's a huge potential around that in the near future, as that technology starts to trickle down through from the high-end phones to the cheaper phones, etc. So LiDAR scanning is kind of like laser scanning and bit mapping. So it creates a 3D representation of the environment really quickly, just by using your phone. And it used to take, you know, having to hire hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment. Now you can do that on your phone and scan your room and create a 3D model of your room in 4 or 5 seconds. Yeah, it's quite impressive. So imagine doing that with a stage setup, Solange. You know, creating a 3D model of an orchestra or a band stage, and be able to make all the objects on that stage interactive, so people could click on it and say, you know, this is the cello, or this is how you set up a drum mic properly, etc.
I'm already thinking, because you were talking about that virtual tour of the concert halls, and you know, you could do so many things around, you know, getting the students to reflect on performance considerations of those particular halls, and just getting them to reflect on places. So and then I thought about, you know, visualization exercises, and you know, the students are always asking, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Well, stick these on or do this. You're on the stage. Off you go. Yeah. Everyone can perform now in Carnegie Hall, can't they?
So I mean, a big take up with early 360-degree video was music. So Paul McCartney, U2, they obviously got the money to do that, and so they paid companies like Joint to take 360-degree videos of their performances, and then they made them publicly available, which was fantastic. But you could sort of basically almost kind of like, in a way, kind of walk around the stage while Paul McCartney was performing.
Yeah.
Quite powerful.
Yeah. And what you were saying about the sound too, Tom, just quickly, it's interesting because you can also reflect on ways in which we can almost trick the students or create illusions through those ideas of multisensory integration, and how we can use one sense to impact the others.
Yeah, and to override. So what's the impact of, well, coming back to, you know, I guess when I was teaching audio engineering, one of the things I'd do is show a film trailer to my students. And I'd show it in two modes, one without sound and one with sound. So things like the Alien versus Predator trailer, which was incredibly dark. You could hardly see anything, just some glimpses of the Predator, you know, and it was really scary. But as soon as you turn the sound off, it was like really boring, you know, because you can hardly see anything, and without the sound there, you know, crescendoing and going quiet and stuff like that, you're going, well, yeah, so what? This is just a dark, you know, environment. So yeah, I think having that, particularly for music students, having the ability to create those immersive environments, the audio part of it is part of the key, because a lot of graphical design students or media design students, the last thing they think about is the audio. And so there's a niche market there for, you know, music and audio students to be able to bring their skills into that as a valuable asset.
I think all of our lectures should just have a, you know, the Jaws soundtrack at the back. That'll get students involved, won't it?
So one other quick thing before we leave Google Earth, we'll just go back into screen sharing, that I just wanted to quickly highlight was, the other thing I like about it is it's easy to share. So once you've created your wonderful, fantastic tour like mine, which is just a quick tour around some of the places I've visited for conferences, and I usually take a 360-degree camera and take some photos, but you just click on the share button. So the share project, it's really simple. It's just like sharing a Google Doc. You can share directly with people via email, so that it's like an invite only. So you can effectively make it private for a small group. Or you can go and get a public link, but you can make that link not, you know, it's not going through a Google search, so people aren't going to find it unless they know the link, or it'll be hard to find anyway. Or you can change that so they can edit, if you want to take that risk. Or make it restricted, so only people with that link will ever be able to see it, etc. So you've got these variety of ways of being able to share it, and you copy that link and then paste it just very, very quickly. So it's just like a Google Doc. You can share that really, really quickly and easily. And if you look in my Padlet, that's all I've done there is I've pasted it as an example, a shared link. You can see it's a huge link. I probably could have used a URL shortener to make it easier, but I just did it really quickly. And if you clicked on that, that would open up my, in view only mode, my Google Street View tour. So the ability to be able to share those. The other thing that's great is to make these actually collaborative exercises as well, so that you can actually if you invite people directly, and as I said down here, you can change this link so that they can edit. So suddenly this becomes a collaborative virtual environment where students can work as teams to create these. It doesn't have to be a single student working on this. So suddenly it becomes a collaborative environment, which is fantastic.
I want to add one more thing, Thomas, just
yeah,
a little link. Now, I just want to put a caveat to say, I don't know if this is strictly speaking a legal thing to do, but there's this very interesting software which someone's created called Street View Download. And what it allows you to do is to get the spherical image from out of the code. I'm just going to put it in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes in an education setting, we can use these elements if they're not going to be published elsewhere.
Yeah, there's huge databases of Creative Commons or copyright-free images available if you just do a Google search. But yeah, it's interesting that you can actually download as well. So thanks for that, Mitch.
Yeah, I think you'd probably have to credit Google somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's just good practices. And you build that into the framework of the assessment. As you'd say, you know, you can use freely available or, you know, Creative Commons content in your project. You need to, you know, cite it properly and cite the original copyright holder, etc. And that's just good practice. It's good digital literacy as an exercise. So that's kind of our overview of Google Earth Web. Next tool I'd like to quickly look at, let's go back to sharing again, is Metaverse. So how many people have come across Metaverse? Mitch, yep, Jairus, Lucia. Okay, so a few people, which is good. Stuart, yep, cool. Stuart's actually there. He's just hiding with his camera off. Okay. So augmented reality. So Metaverse is I guess it's kind of an AR based, but it does much more than that. It lets you do quite a few different types of web-based tools that you can then display on a mobile app. So you use the mobile app on your phone as the delivery platform. You create it using a web-based editing environment. And just like Google, a lot of these technologies tend to have a lifespan. So Aurasma was pretty much the go-to for education around augmented reality for a number of years. It was a really, really simple interface that people really loved. The project I put into the Padlet around enhancing visual design studios used Aurasma. So students basically created posters, and that was their summative assessment, create a poster, and they had to do something that was geographically located to a local environment that had something, you know, some sort of political message to convey. But then they had to augment that via augmented reality. So when they do the end of the year exhibition, it's not just a flat piece of poster on the wall. As people went around, they could use their smartphones with Aurasma and AR to have a much more interactive experience. And those posters would trigger videos. They would trigger links to websites or, you know, Wikipedia articles or whatever the students had triggered. So it became much more of a immersive experience. So that was Aurasma. And then Hewlett-Packard, for some reason, decided to buy Aurasma and changed its names to HP Reveal. And then after about a year, they completely shut it down. So it's a little bit of an Apple as well. You know, Apple bought the really, at the time, the best immersive platform that was around. I can't remember the name of it, 4 or 5 years ago or even later, earlier, and then completely shut it down because they wanted the intellectual property of the company, maybe some of the content, and they've now built it into the OS. So they came up with ARKit. which presumably is going to end up in Apple glasses one day, which we might end up with some really cool, funky augmented reality glasses that people might even want to wear. Unlike the HoloLens, which you look really naff wearing, or the original Google glasses, where the meme went around. There's a whole Tumblr, I don't know if people saw it, but a whole Tumblr dedicated to white men wearing Google glasses. It was just a whole rip-off of really geeky looking white guys wearing Google glasses and looking really happy, and everyone's going, there's no way I'm going to wear a pair of those. And you know, that's, Google didn't get it. It was just, you know, socially inept. But anyway, I've kind of lost track of what I was talking about. But yeah, anyway, so we're looking at augmented reality and metaverse. So I wanted to have a play with metaverse because it's kind of at the moment one of the platforms you can use. It hasn't been shut down yet, and it's a relatively simple intro into augmented reality and beyond. So there's a link there. It'll take you to, if you click on the create one, if you click on the iOS or Android, it'll take you to download the app, which you need on your phone to create your environment. You click on the create there, it'll take you to the studio. It's probably a good idea to create an account if you haven't already, so that anything you're doing is saved there. And this is just, once again, an example I've been playing with. So what I'd actually like to do is to get you to have a try at my wonderful creation with Metaverse. So if you take your smartphone and scan the code, and you can even do that just with your camera on most modern smartphones, just activate the camera, point it at the QR code, or recognize as a QR code, and it'll pump up and ask you to either download or open in Metaverse this wonderful experience that I've created for your pleasure. So have a go at that. If you haven't downloaded Metaverse, it may take you a minute or two to download. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to go into screen mirroring and demo it. But if you can all have a go at it yourselves on your smartphone, I'll check shortly to see what you've created. So this isn't particularly an augmented reality experience here. What I've tried to focus on in this very simple example is a content creation exercise that you know, you could maybe transfer into your own context.
Thomas, I have to add something. Sorry to be so sort of vocal about this, but I have to add this, that there's another company called Metaverse, which is spelled without the second E, metaverse.com, and they have another very interesting online editor. So it's so curious to note that they're sort of in the same.
maybe one of them is Chinese. Oops, I shouldn't say that.
No, I'm sure that they're not, actually, because I've heard the guy who created it interviewed somewhere.
Oh, okay.
But I just realised after watching your LinkedIn that it's actually a different company.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's always, there's usually, well, hopefully, there's more ways to do things than one, and you know, hopefully there's different options that you have. Sonia.
Can I have the code again? It's asking me point your phone at the Metaverse code.
Oh, okay. I was just about to demo it. So,
sorry.
So what I'm doing here is it goes scan code. So if I click on that in the Metaverse app, you can see I've got it up on my computer and it opens it there. If I just go back to,
Okay.
I'm going to have to jump out of screen mirroring for a sec to go back to the code for you. There's the code. What I'll do is actually, I'll put the link in the chat as well. So if you click the link on the chat, it'll also take you there. So it gives you a couple of ways of sharing. You can tweet it if you wanted it to be public, or on Facebook. Scan it directly on your mobile device, which is, you know, the most useful. If you want other people to collaborate and co-edit it, you can share the edit link, which is the studio link. So once again, that can be a collaborative exercise, which I think is quite nice. So has everyone managed to scan that QR code? I'll just go back to demoing. Okay, I'm just doing this wirelessly, so it's taking a few seconds to handshake. Okay, so I scanned the app, the QR code. It's open in Metaverse for me. You can see I've just called this pretty much default AR workspace, and my description down the bottom there is testing Metaverse. The idea is that people take a photo of a coffee cup and share it on my wall. So if I click the play, and you can see a virtual coffee cup comes up, and it gives me some text. It says, "Time for coffee. Use your mobile phone to take a photo of a coffee cup." So it initiates the rear-facing camera on my device. Hopefully it works on Android. I haven't tested on Android. You can actually get it to activate the selfie camera, but in this case, I wanted it to activate the rear camera. And so your exercise is click on the text that says, "Use your mobile phone to take a photo of a coffee cup." So if I click on that, it activates the camera, and you can see my wonderful workspace. But here you go, I have a coffee cup. And if I take a photo, it gives me a little share icon. I have actually put some logic into this. If you take a photo of something naughty, it's not going to recognize it. It is because it will only allow you to take a photo of a cup. What it thinks is a cup is a little bit limited as well. It has to actually have a handle. So if you have a glass or a tumbler, it's not going to recognize that as a cup. So now you can see, here's the photos that have been shared, and I can preview those. I can see that someone's done their homework.
Sorry, all I had was a Pringles can.
I didn't actually recognize a Pringles can. They'll let you do that. Okay. Some reason the logic is not that great, but anyway. And then if you hit next, it takes you back to the start, and you could either take another photo or go, "Thanks for sharing," and basically ends the experience. Or hit the X. I think it's just because I'm screen mirroring, it's locked up. There we go. So a very simple experience of getting people to create some content and then share it. Go back to there, go back to, I've got too many things open. There we go. So coming back to my creator space on the web, you can see, as well as my experience, it's got collections, my walls and polls, so you can do various stuff. So what I did there is not an augmented reality experience, apart from the the virtual coffee cup coming up. Because I was quite interested in the sorts of things you can actually do with Metaverse beyond that. But if I click on my walls, this is my wall that I've created where all the shared content goes to. And I can go through and see what people shared and actually see if someone did share something. So 2 people did. So Mitch has owned up to his Pringles can. Whose is the other mug? There we go, Slonge. Once again, my star pupil. There we go.
We're waiting for that chocolate frog. So if you could put the reality one up, that would be great.
You can see my previous attempts with different cups to see how it would recognize a cup. It even recognized one upside down. So there we go. So I'm kind of hoping that you might see some of the potential with what you could possibly do with Metaverse and beyond. Just what tends to happen with AR is people make like a video play or a 3D model or activate when you scan a photo or a QR code, which is so what in a lot of ways, but depending on what it's actually, how that's adding to the experience or enhancing it. I just like the fact that I could put some logic into this experience and get some user created content that's shared as a very, very simple exercise. So just to look into the editing interface of Metaverse. So Mitch, is this actually the platform that you've had a try, or is it the alternative, the parallel Metaverse? You're muted.
It's called Metaverse, METAVRSE.
So is that the one you've had a play with, or have you actually tried both?
I had a play with it, but I just found, because I'm mostly interested in simple tools, because they're, you know, there's a potential there to somehow bring them into the teaching space. This one just seemed like it was a little bit out of that scope. It's I'll just show you.
So the alternative, you mean, or this one?
No, the alternative one. It's to do with, it's also much more commercially oriented. It's people who want to do product demos and et cetera, et cetera. That seemed like they were.
Yeah, I mean, some platforms will have obviously a way of generating income, and whether that's through ads or you know, getting you to subscribe if you want to certain features, etc.
Although what was super interesting about it was, I mean, there's definitely an education angle to it, but you know, they've been able to put a very substantial editing interface into a complete, basically make it all web-based. So it's no hint of an application download anywhere. And I think it links to Sketchfab, and it links to, you know, a bunch of other.
Yeah, it's quite impressive what you can do with web-based now.
Yeah.
So anyway, while you're finding that link, and if you could stick it into the Padlet as well, I'm just going to quickly go over the interface, because we're probably going to run out of time, because we need to jump on to Rosalind, because Charles is getting really bored, I can see. But anyway, so this is kind of going into editing my fantastic experience that we've all just experienced. Effectively, what you create is scenes. So it's basically 3 scenes. So the first scene is the intro scene, where you start. And when you click on the add new, it just pops up a blank scene with a couple of default spots for some text and a space for an object to go in, whether that's a model or video or whatever. And it has a whole library database of stuff you can just pick and choose from. You don't have to go and create your own content as such. And then you can add text box. But the key thing is then the logic, how you move through these different scenes, and what the interactions are that you can do. And so you have scenes and you have objects. So the objects are what make it interactive. The scenes are kind of the landing pages between those interactions. And you make the link between scenes with the arrows. So if I click on the arrow there, it pops up the interface. So it tells me that the originating object there is a text box. I can just quickly type in the text, what I want, you know, the users to do. Where's it going to go to? It's going to transition to a scene. So if I click on that, it can transition to a block, which is the blue objects. It can end the experience, or it can put it on hold, or it can just do nothing, which could be rather frustrating. And then I tell it where I want it to go. So I want it to go to scene 2. So it's going to scene 2. So now if I click on scene 2, what I've done here is create a default from the library of using the camera, because that's what I want people to do. To make that interactive, it needs to go to an object. So I click on the interaction interface here, the object. And this is just from the library of their objects. The object is to activate the camera. And in this case, the object has the logic. So I can set the actual logic on here. Come back. It has to have a cup or something resembling a cup in the photo. And I thought this was really interesting. I thought this is quite powerful, where you can have some basic sort of logic around an interactive experience like this, because you take your life in a little bit of your hands when you're wanting students to take photos and selfies and start posting them, as to what are they going to be posting. And it could be anything, of course. And you do want to have some boundaries around that. And no matter how many times you rely on people to be nice, there's always going to be someone who pushes it a little bit too far. And so by putting that logic in there, which puts a boundary around it, there has to be a cup or something resembling a cup. I thought that was really interesting. Sonia.
Yeah, would a glass of water will do or not?
Well, try it and see. I tried.
I don't know whether you got mine. I tried with glass, so maybe you didn't get it.
Okay, I'll go back to my wall and have a quick look. But yeah, I tried with an espresso cup and it didn't recognize it. But you know,
but a Pringles can is fine.
yeah, I can't see the logic in that. But anyway, maybe it was what the Nespresso cup was on. It, you know, was blurring out maybe the color balance or something. I don't know. I'd have to try again. But yeah, I just find it interesting that you can put that some logic into that object, and then what will happen once that object is found by the camera, save it to your wall, and then I'll jump back to scene 2. So once it's saved to wall, you have to create a wall, and that wall is then associated with your profile. And what do I want my wall to be? I want it to show coffee cups. So if I just go back out of that, because I don't want to destroy my fantastic experience, and create a new one. Then you know you can start pulling in scenes and objects, etc., etc. So what if people think of metaverse? See, it says it's got unpublished changes because it's mucking around with it. Solange, do you think you might be able to use something like that, or was it starting to get too techy or not?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the thing that came to mind for me was, you know, again, that idea of having a wall of photos. You could get students to, you know, take images of their home performance spaces or practice spaces and be able to comment on various aspects. But yeah, I don't know. Again, it comes to one of those things where you don't want every week and every sort of module and every subject to have a new fancy toy that the students then, you know, go through that whole cognitive overload of, oh my God, what's this app now and what's this? So unless there was a really clear rationale, kind of like what you said, you know, over the last couple of days, of how this could enhance their experience as to just, you know, twisting the camera and showing us or something like that. Yeah,
definitely. But what I did like about it was that it enabled me to do something interactive remotely, you know, with you guys. Which for me was quite important, to be able to actually do something hands-on and to have something to show for it, quite simply. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be anything like my scenario as such. That's just a scenario I created as far as the logic goes. I mean, when we go into, if I add a new scene, you can see the variety of types of scenes and the type of logic and the types of interaction that you can create. This is quite impressive, and this is all free, and as far as I can tell so far, I haven't been pushed a whole lot of ads. So it looks to me like a platform with a lot of potential to be very creative. And maybe, you know, you just point your students towards it and say, well, how would you use this, and what would be appropriate, and let them go for it. You know, design something that's an interactive experience for their context. So I'm not going to bother adding that. Just go back. Okay, so that's a quick overview of Metaverse. So we're up to Roslyn, which I'm going to hand over to Charles. Charles 70. I need to practice saying that. And
that was
and
excellent,
his team.
Tom.
Yeah, I'm getting better. I'm going to stop screen sharing and hand it over to you.
Okay, so thank you, Tom. So we're going to go through a learning platform that we're developing called Roslyn. Some of you have seen it before. But before we get into that, at the end, we want to show you a little bit about how to use it. So we're going to pop a link, Keenan or Joe or Jairus, can somebody pop a link in for people to be able to sign up? I only put it in early because, unfortunately, if you haven't signed up to Roslyn before, the confirmation email tends to get stuck in Mimecast for a few minutes. So We'll put it up there soon so you can get logged in and wait for that confirmation email to come through. But in the meantime, I'll give you.
You don't need that to view Roslyn, though, do you? It's just to
No.
to edit.
Excuse me. I'll show you what's going on, but Keenan, I'm going to give you an overview, and then Keenan will come through and
Cool.
walk you through some things. So if you want to walk through it yourself, there it is. Thanks, Joe. Then we can do that. First, by matter of introduction, I'm Charles Seveny. I think most of you have met me before, so no need to go into too much detail. But this platform that we've built has been largely thanks to the effort of Keenan Hellier and Joe Tay, who's our learning designer, who's done a lot of the UX UI work together with Jairus Bound. And Jairus has also built a lot of the animations, etc., that you'll see me share today. So, Tom, you've disabled me from sharing.
Oh, okay. It's such a problem. Here we go.
I can take a
make
hint.
co-host. Here we go. Does anyone else need co-host?
Keenan.
Okay.
All right. So just to tell you a little bit about what Roslyn is. Roslyn is a digital learning environment, and we started out the vision for Roslyn is when we look at the current landscape of the things that we use in our subjects, and all of these things are fantastic tools, but we use a lot of different third-party tools when we're teaching, and oftentimes that means that students and academics alike are having to learn how to use all these different tools. And even worse, though, sometimes these tools fall off the shelf on us. I don't know if anybody out there is familiar with Smart Sparrow, which was an adaptive learning platform similar to H5P or Articulate Rise. We all invested and built all this content in Smart Sparrow, and then all of a sudden they sold Smart Sparrow to Pearson and we couldn't use it anymore. More recently, we were using Piazza, the discussion board tool, in most of our subjects. Just because it's a bit better than the Canvas discussion board. I don't know if anybody's attempted to use the Canvas discussion board, but if you have, you know what I'm talking about. But then, of course, Piazza all of a sudden went to an ad-based model, and the university told us that we couldn't use it anymore. So we keep investing in these third-party tools, and they sort of go off the radar on us. So we do one step at a time with Roslyn is consolidate all those tools into one platform, and one platform that we can control. Now, one of the really nice parts about this is that now you've got one consistent look and feel across all of these different tools that we'd normally use. We have one platform, so we can learn how to use one platform, wrap our heads around that. We don't have to learn how to use multiple different tools for our subjects. And also, we don't have to worry about us selling Roslyn to Pearson or at the last minute, or starting to inject ads into it. Although, you know, on the current university,
you're open to offers, though.
yeah, in the current university landscape, we may have to, but we'll leave that for another time. So that's the big picture of Roslyn, right? Of what we want to do with this ultimately. And it'll be really, so we've already built a discussion board component. We have an adaptive learning component for it. I'll take you through some of those today. But ultimately, we want to create even live polling and all of this, and have it as an integrated system. So all of these parts can talk to each other, and students can actually engage in a robust learning environment that's one contained environment with all these different tools, rather than using all these third-party tools and trying to pull them all together. The other nice part is we're going to build an analytics suite for Roslyn, so that you can actually have integrated analytics across, you know, our students. Is this one student engaging with the adaptive learning tools? Are they engaging with the discussion board, et cetera? And all that will be consolidated in one place. And that's the Roslyn vision. Now, I'm just going to go through some of the things that Roslyn can do now. And for now, we're going to focus mostly on the adaptive learning elements of Roslyn. The discussion board called Roslyn Vox is up and running, but it's in very early days. And ultimately, we'd love to have it integrated with the rest of Roslyn. But for today, I just want to talk about the adaptive learning tools within Roslyn. Is everybody comfortable with what adaptive learning is? I don't want to mansplain it to you if you're already familiar. So it enables students at any given point as they're working through a module to make choices. Perhaps I want to view this, or I want to view that, or even if they get a question wrong or right, that leads them to different screens, so they could get a question wrong and go through more fundamental questions, or if they get it right, they could scoot right through, etc. So that's really what we've been trying to build here with Roslyn. And within Roslyn, you can not only have that structure of adaptive learning, so I want students to move through sort of like a museum viewing my content in different exhibits. We want to be able to have different types of content that you can host within that museum, if you will. So we can obviously insert images, you can insert videos. We're working on 360-degree images and videos, web VR enabled, and 3D objects and animations. Now, the color coding
Can it make coffee?
What's that?
Can it make coffee though?
Soon, we hope. I'll talk to Keenan about that.
Yeah.
Our big, I don't want to use the word competitor, but the other platform that a lot of people are using is H5P, which is another adaptive learning platform. The color coding here is blue are things that H5P can do also. Orange are things that Roslyn can do and H5P cannot. So we've wanted to make sure that we've got, additive to what H5P can offer here. The pedagogical features of Roslyn are many, and what you can see over here is an example, and Keenan will go through this for you, of what one relatively complex branching module will look like. So you have each of these dots as an individual slide that students can navigate to. Then they get to a certain point where they can choose which direction they want to go, and that will take them on different pathways in their learning. And Keenan will take you through exactly how that works. But this is also the editor, so you can click on these different slides and set up how you want those slides to look, etc. So it's quite visual and intuitive. So this node right here, for example, might be an MCQ, and depending on what they answer, that's going to take them in different directions. Or it could be, I want to learn more about A, or I want to learn more about B, C, or D, etc. And they can go down that path and learn more about it, however you want to create things. So we have this rich media hosting within a learning environment. So importantly, unlike Kaltura, which we've all probably used, where it just goes, here's a video, and you tell your students to click on the video. Now you can actually take the video and make it part of a bigger module. You can have an intro leading into that video. You can have some notes on it. You can have some follow-up questions, etc. So it's actually part of that environment. 360 images and videos with hotspots. So you can have an environment that you filmed, click on different elements to get more information, or even set it up like this so you can maneuver through perhaps a 3D environment, a 360 environment, even on a flat screen device. We have the ability to explore 3D objects and animations, and I'm going to show you one of those now. Actually, why don't sorry, I'm jumping around a bit here, but why don't I show you just what the student-facing view is so you can get a bit of a feel of this before I go too much further. So can you all see my web interface here? Yep. Thanks, Mitch. These are some various things. This is just a demo page, and if one of my colleagues doesn't mind putting the link to that in the chat if you haven't already. That shows you some of the different things that you can do with Roslyn. So this is what the student-facing view will look like. And you can click on different things. And as you see here, here's a module about bananas that we created. You have your learning objectives as a drop-down at the top, and those can change slide to slide. You can navigate through. This tells us bananas are fruit. But actually they're technically herbs. So now we've all learned something today, move through, etc. And a lot of these, do we have any questions in this one? Here's one with a question. Oops, I'll minimize our learning objectives. What is the ploidy level of bananas? All right, well, I'm gonna go with tetraploid and check. No, I got that one wrong. Okay. Jairus, what's the right answer?
Everything apart from 1.
Oh man, okay.
That's what the hint's for.
I see. I wasn't reading the hints. I was just going through. So we can drop videos in as well. Same idea. You can add text below the videos if you want, and you get the idea. Here's another thing that we have put through, and this is called, oops, Roslyn KX, and I'm going to go to it through a different screen here because that one's behaving badly. There was a program that we used to use, especially in the Department of Pathology, called Slice. And what it is that you can have a high resolution microscope image. So this is an image of a spot of blood. And what you're actually able to do is zoom in and zoom in further and zoom in as far as you like. And that will actually show you what's happening in that particular slide. Okay, and there's also abilities on here for collaborative annotation, so students can circle and annotate bits, or instructors can, and then other students interacting with that can do the same thing. Now, I know that a lot of you are looking at this and going, well, I'm not going to use a slide of blood, but I was thinking earlier when Tom was talking about Google Maps, etc. What if you had a massive satellite image, right? At high resolution, and then you could have students actually zooming in at high resolution on different areas of that particular image, annotating different things, etc. So you can start any high resolution image, you can do this sort of thing with. And again, drop it within a module, so you have text underneath, follow-up questions, etc., all part of a learning experience rather than just a standalone model.
I'd see something like astronomy, you know, being quite useful in that type of context as well.
Absolutely. You can also bring in 3D. Now, this is an animation that Jairus did for the heart, and my honor student last year added the coronary vasculature. But you can bring these things in, so it's almost a sketchfab or pedestal-like ability to interact with it. Here we can make it transparent. You can speed up and slow down the animation, so you can really get a feel. Oops, I made it 0. For how these things are moving within, this is the human heart, obviously. But then, of course, again, there are learning activities built around this, where you can click on different things. You can click on various vessels, highlight those, gain more information, etc. So we've got that capacity built in as well. So I think we've posted the demo link, so you can have a play with that in your own time. But that's the idea of what Roslyn seeks to do, is develop these sorts of modules that can host a wide variety of rich media. All right, going back to this. So yes, 3D objects, animations, all of these orange things again, H5P can't do. High resolution slide viewer. This alone replaced a program, like I said before, we were using called Slice that was costing us $50,000 a year. So you're welcome, MDHS. This customizable logic and branching for a range of criteria. So it actually, you can get to a very advanced level where not only just what did they pick here, but you can say, if they chose X here, and then they get to this point and chose B, it will take into account their choice back here to actually put them on new branches as well, if you want to get that complex with it. Learning analytics will have a lovely learning analytics dashboard that's still a work in progress. And this integrated discussion board that we're working on as well. So those are the pedagogical features. The technical features, importantly, this is web deployable. So you can deploy it through Canvas, through learning tool interoperability, so that you need to authenticate students. But if you don't want to necessarily do that, or you want to share your creation with your mate overseas, so that they can deploy it to their students, you can just send them a web link and away they go. Which is very different to a lot of the other third-party tools we need, where everybody needs a subscription to be able to use it, etc. It is locally hosted, and that's relevant for things like the Department of Anatomy, where there's a lot of restrictions on where they can host their images of cadavers, etc. It has a responsive web design, and this is something that Keenan is especially proud of, and I'm proud of him for. Meaning that you can switch from, there's not a mobile site and a flat screen site. If you switch the size of the interface between flat screen or mobile device, the user interface actually changes, the buttons change to make it more intuitive for that type of device. It's university owned and branded. LTI integration is coming, and we're working on a nice sort of Creative Commons area for people to be able to share their content. So that's all I have at this end, and that's the general overview. Before Keenan gets stuck into showing you some of the actual functionality hands-on, does anybody have any questions about Roslyn or what we're aiming to do with this?
I'm going to ask Charles if this is meant to be for your faculty, or if the idea is that it's a university-wide initiative.
Yep, that's a great question. Originally, we wanted this to be university-wide, and we still do, but they knocked us back for an LTI grant, and now we're playing the part of the little red hen and saying, well, if you didn't want to help us make the bread, we're not going to let you eat it. That being said, what we're looking at now is we're doing a soft rollout within our own school. But we are interested in talking to other faculties about using it. We'll just need a little bit of compensation, shall we say, nominal for hosting costs, etc. Yeah.
It looks absolutely brilliant. It looks, yeah, just phenomenal. And I think that many of us would agree that it's one of the issues with any of this technology is we, like our students, get absolutely overloaded with platforms, and then they're changing and shifting. And like you said, you start something in one platform and then it no longer exists, or you're asked to go onto another one. And, you know, we have a Melbourne model where students take subjects in all different faculties. And so, yeah, instead of, it'd be great if the university had one cohesive place that all the students knew and understood, and the academics knew and understood, and that was it.
That absolutely is our long-term vision for this. If I allow you a peek behind the curtains of the strategy here, that's sort of what we're aiming towards. We're starting it locally, and then other interested groups trying to get some interest up. And the more interest we get around the university, I feel like that will empower us to go back to learning environments or chancellery to try to say, look, you know, we've got a lot of uptake across 5 or 6 different faculties here. There's a lot of students using this thing. Can you show us some support in using it? But in the meantime, I mean, we're talking something like $1,000 or $1,500 a year or something like that we'd be asking just to help us with hosting costs, because they do add up, and that is on our shoulders now. And just support and things like that from my team, because as you would have seen, not including me, we're a team of 2.5, building a learning platform, which I think is, for those folks who've been working on it, which isn't me, I'm just the strategy guy, a very impressive accomplishment, given that this is about 4 months worth of work you're looking at so far. So, you know, there is a lot of work involved in it. But yes, that is the vision. We'd love to have this be a University of Melbourne wide platform. They just always get concerned about how is it going to be supported in the long term, etc. So my job is to try to convince them, well, if you invest a 0.4 FTE in supporting it in the long term, then it will be supported in the long term, and save the university hundreds of thousands of dollars on all these other subscriptions they're paying.
Yeah, I think that's how you pitch it, is you know, the trade-off with other costs.
Yep. Sorry, but that's just me waxing lyrical about the strategy. You got me started. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
But yes, if you're interested in using it, absolutely. Send us an email. Jairus, could you pump the DLH info email address, please, in the chat? Send us an email, get in touch, and we can absolutely talk about that. Yep. If that's the only questions we have so far, by the way, if you are worried about how long we'll be able to keep managing this, this is our priority. We have at least 2 more years in the Digital Learning Hub that we've been extended, and I don't anticipate that we'll get cut off then. They'd be pretty silly to cut off their Digital Learning Hub in the current environment. So I'm fairly confident we'll be around.
Yeah, you'd think so, wouldn't you? You'd think so.
I think we'll be able to maintain this for quite some time.
Yeah.
And it definitely will be our priority. All right, at this point, I will turn over to Beans, aka Keenan. Are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Who'll take
I'm
you
even
through
using your background.
Oh, nice, very good. Our brand new shiny Digital Learning Hub background. Keenan's going to take us through some of the functionality here, and take it away, Keenan. And please, I'll speak on Keenan's behalf. Feel free to sort of cut him off if something isn't clear or you need to go back. Sometimes when you've been building the thing, it's very easy to gloss over things that might not be obvious to other people. So feel free to jump in.
Give me a second, hopefully. And I think I've just lost my headphones as well. Let's go that one. Okay, hopefully we can all see that. Let me just swap headphones quickly. Yeah, unfortunately, the person they pay to look after the Zoom stuff can't use Zoom properly. That'd be me. Hopefully it's come back in. Great. So anyway, my name's Keenan Hayer. I'm a software developer and Muppet here, resident Muppet in the Digital Learning Hub. And I'm very proud to finally be showing people what we've been working on for the last, last 7-8 months. It's been a long time through lockdown, and it's kept me sane and made me insane at the same time. So if I go a bit airy-fairy, that's why. Sometimes looking at your own work for extended periods of times can make you a little bit crazy. So this is an early sort of beta version of our what we call our workbench, which is sort of our editing environment for Roslyn. So basically, we've been spending the last sort of 7-8 months building modules within the code itself, and building modules sort of as almost config files that we can upload to our servers, and then that goes through. But obviously our end goal was to have something that was academic facing, that they didn't have to email us about, and we didn't have to spend, you know, hours away slaving away behind a code editor. So now we're happy to announce that it is available and it is usable, I hope. So basically what we can do is start to create modules in a sort of environment that is a little bit more friendly to the eyes. I find it a lot easier to build modules in at the moment, other than having to sort of format everything that I have to do. So what we can do is basically start to create a module, and you'll see as we sort of add, and I've been told not to add 20 slides this time because I've got confusing. So I'm just going to add a few at a time. So you can see as we grow our slides, we can see our little network graph grow as we add, and we can add just slides that we're going to use later, and they basically just sit there. We'll add another one just so it, there we go. And then what we can do if we want to, let's just make these a bit more readable. So, and then cool. And so what we can do is we can actually start to link these. So if we want to put slide 4 between slide 3, there we go. I know it sounds a little bit boring, but once you actually get into it, you start building modules that look a bit like this. Yeah. So for a linear module, sure, it's not exactly the most intuitive thing in the world, but once you get to these branching modules with a lot of logic and things like that, we can actually start to see that we can visualize our pathways a lot better. So what we're actually looking at now is a online practical that we've been, we developed. This was actually developed before we built the editor, but when you start looking at a file that's 700,000 lines long, you can see that actually narrowing it down to a slide pile that's still rough, it's still very confusing and very eventful, but we can actually start to see our pathways being built. So these are all, as we can bring up the logic bit, you can see that we actually have designated points where it diverges. Some of them are just trap states where we go one over, one up, one back, and then take them down the right path. So if you get the question wrong, you'll start to see that you'll actually be taken down, you know, the not quite pathway. All right, and we go back to basically see, and then we click next, and we'll start to go back again. If we get it wrong on the Ellis one, we do it again, and then if they get it correct, we start to progress down the right pathway. So you can see as we highlight over these logic pathways here, we can actually start to see where these are taking us, and then as you can see, the correct pathway is somewhere around here. Hopefully. Yeah, there it is there. And then basically we get this one, same thing, and then it takes us on. So there's actually 5 or 6 different branches here that students have been told what to do. Different students will take different pathways as they've been assigned in class. So you can see there's different segments, and then they take you through each of these little branches here, and they all converge on the end here and then finish. So we also have this shorter modules that involve the same thing, where they be basically taken through, and then you can actually go through and see where you're going, and then if you want to keep going, keep clicking, and then you'll see where they go, and it keeps adding on to the end of end of the pathway there. So that's basically the logic flow. We'll come back to our modules just sitting here. And then we actually start to add our components and actually build modules. So we also have, our rich text, which is just our, normal text box sort of things. Okay, then we have our images, which we can actually start to bring in images, and then our question types as well. So basically, as you add, it's not exactly like a PowerPoint thing where you have a PowerPoint slide where you drag and position things. It's very much based on a sort of web design and web responsiveness, just because as you start to resize and change and chop and change screen sizes, you actually, the problem with Smart Sparrow and H5P is that they're in containers that are fixed width and fixed height. So if you open this up on a mobile site, on a H5P site and a mobile site and have it in portrait mode, you'll basically be unable to use it. We've gone the other way in this way, just so because students like to learn how they want to learn. If they want to learn on the train, if they want to learn while commuting to uni, hopefully not while they're driving, but if they are on public transport, they can basically flip open their phone and have a look. So you have to excuse me, it's been a while since I've done this. As you can see, we can actually start to add in our images here. Hopefully I'll have one that's not gonna screw up on me.
It's always a dangerous proposition.
So if we go back in, should have seen it come up. Sometimes it just likes to play around with me. Always the way. I promise you we can do that. So you can add images, you add multiple images, you just have to basically go in and just select all of them at once. And then we come into sort of question types as well. So obviously we have a lot more question types than you see here. Text entry, multi-answer, multiple choice, but as soon we've already got them built, we just have to sort of build the cassette around the editor, as you can see here, and a lot of them require customization and how they work. So if you go through the question and answer demo module, there is also like a, goes through all the different question types you have, and as we build up the editor, as it's sort of a flexible sort of environment, we can actually start to have more and more question types, and as we build components, they'll be added in. So basically, this is sort of the major point where we start to think about branching and things like that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to leave this question here. So you can see that we can change which question, which answer is right. Now, obviously, just see the, and then you can see as we go through, we can actually set the feedback that they'll see here. So it's very much stay on the one slide and customize the one slide as you go. But then also we can start to add logic in as well. So what we can do is we can create a new flow. So you'll see that it actually starts on your slide 1 here. Just ignore the HTML tag there. So what we can do is we can click on that. We can add the component in. So what we do is we just go selected answer here, and then we can go, if it's, they get answer A there, and we can start to see here that it comes up here. So selected answer equals A. We can go click to add more here, and we can click to add this slide here. So that'll add that into the thing. Now, if we want to make it a trap state, all we have to do is click again, and then click on the first slide there. And there you can see we can actually go back, and it takes us back onto the main path. We go back and we can start adding more. If we add a new slide here, so right click, add free slide there. And that basically creates it off the chain. And if we want to do it again, we just have to hit logic again. We go is B, okay, hit that, and then it appears there. Else if selected answer is B, we can start to add this and then go back and add that. So there you go, you have your 2 strap states there. And then basically, as you go, you can basically go into preview mode here and say you want to check it. So you go, I want to test, okay, A is for almost, go into, you're wrong, go back, try again, B, you're wrong, go back, and then onto the chain there, okay. So hopefully it's a bit intuitive. I know it's a bit of a hard to look at first off. There's a lot going on, especially you're introduced to a module like this. But if you just want to make linear modules, here's one we've made before. This is just one of our old modules that we've brought in. So you can see that it's just a linear thing, almost like your PowerPoint slides at the end. And we can start to have a look that we see that.
Sorry, mate, can you zoom your screen in or out or something? I can't see anything on my...
You might have to go on to view options there and go fit to screen.
Yeah.
So,
got it, thank you.
If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to go through it. But look, I think it's a thing where you sort of need to have a play around with first. Use the link in the chat there, log in, have a go. I hope you like it. We've all been working pretty hard on it. But on the run into semester one, we've got to get the LTI integration active. So you have classes and subjects basically linked from your Canvas sites. And then you can basically upload your modules or make your modules and then deploy them to your Canvas sites through the LTI integration. The analytics suite is coming. It just needs to be switched on. So we do send a lot of logs back. A lot of logs back and forward between the students and the servers, which we collate, and then you'll be able to see. So it does it pretty much in real time. Within about 30 seconds, you'll start to see students, if they start answering questions, you'll start to see their answers come in. So I do see it with, in the meantime, if you don't really like switching between Poll Everywhere, PowerPoint and everything else, you can start to use it in sort of practical classes and see how students are progressing through their modules as well, especially if you're deploying in a live environment. Like this was deployed in a live environment. It wasn't a take-home task or a homework task. It was deployed in a 2-hour class where the students worked through it in groups. So as you see students progress, you can see major pinch points. You'll be able to start to actually add these blocks into analytics and see the students progress through in real time. And if you see that a lot of students are answering a question wrong, you can pull up your students and say, hey, let's go over this again. So it becomes almost like, yes, you can have some reactive feedback over weeks and months, but it also can be used in a live environment to start building practicals and things like that, which we do envision that it's used, especially with this new blended environment that we're sort of in now. Charles, have I missed anything?
Look, I think the key here is just to get in and have a play. I know that was all pretty rapid fire, but there are some tutorials built into Roslyn if you go in and have a look that show you how to do, start with some of the basic stuff, build a slide, do, 3 or 4 slides in a row and see how you go with that. And Jairus, we're building a quick start guide now, right? More of a tutorial. So I'll remind you that right now we're at a beta version of this, and we're certainly going to be cleaning up the UX UI to make it a bit more intuitive for people. But it is there as an academic editor, and what we needed to do was get things into people's hands ahead of semester 1 because Smart Sparrow had shut down. So we needed people to be able to build their content and put it in. But it is a work in progress, but if you're all welcome to get in there and use it and play around with it. The only thing I ask in exchange is send us some feedback on ways that we can improve it. Again, a lot of these things are a work in progress to make it a bit more intuitive, but if you've got any suggestions, please send them our way, and we're always happy to listen.
Great, thank you very much, Charles and team. So that does pretty much bring us to the end of today's session. And just encourage you to, if you've got some links to share, questions to ask, etc., stick them on the Padlet. You can see Mitch and myself have added a couple of things to the Padlet already, including the Roslyn link there. Someone's got a really interesting comment or question. Can? Yes, we can.
Isn't that the CommBank logo?
It's like my my grandsons watching Bob the Builder. Can we do it? Yes, we can. Okay. So thank you, everyone. Great to have all that interaction. And tomorrow, for those interested, we'll have a look at Mozilla Hubs if you haven't had a look at Mozilla Hubs before. So we'll have a bit of explore of that. Google Street View, how you can actually create using a smartphone's 360-degree imagery and share it, become a Google contributor. And then a delivery platform that's web-based, a very simple one called SeekBeak, which seems like it'll be around for a while. It's been around for a few years now, and they keep adding to it. It's a very small company, but they are very responsive to users. So that's what we're going to have a look at tomorrow. Any questions at this point? Any comments? No. Thank you to our illustrious panel. And we shall see you all tomorrow, or whoever wants to join us. Okay. Thank you
Thanks,
all.
Tom.
Thanks, everyone.
Everyone, brilliant. See you tomorrow.
See ya.
I hope.